She didn't vanish. Ariana Grande went silent because her husband, Derek, was already on TV sobbing about her, quote, disappearance. And she'd seen paperwork that made it clear he wasn't grieving. He was preparing. If you've ever had someone twist the story to trap you, share what helped you get through it in the comments. Ariana eats vending machine lasagna at a roadside motel outside Charlotte. The room key is taped to the dresser tonight. She sits on the bed with a plastic fork, remote in the other hand, trying to look like someone killing time instead of someone hiding. The TV stays on because silence makes her reach for her phone. The local news returns with a red banner, developing. Derek Hale stands outside the police station, shoulders hunched, eyes wet, a reporter holding a mic close. Ariana mutes it on instinct. Then the reporter says, "Ariana Hale," and she turns the sound back on. "My wife is missing," Derek says. "I reported her gone as soon as I knew." He swallows and adds, "She left our house at 6:12 p.m. She didn't take her purse. She didn't take her medication. That's the last time I saw her." Ariana stops chewing. 6:12 p.m. is a made-up number. At 6:12 p.m., she was nowhere near their house, and Derek knows it. The reporter asks what she was wearing. Derek reaches into a plastic evidence bag and pulls out a gray scarf, holding it up for the camera. This is hers. Ariana looks at her duffel by the chair. Her scarf is jammed under a sweatshirt. Not gray, not missing, not something he should be able to find. Her throat tightens, not with panic, more with the sudden sense of being boxed in. Her phone lights up with an unknown number. She lets it buzz twice, then answers. "Hello? Don't tell me where you are," Marisol Reyes says. Her voice is steady. "But you just became the lead story on the 6 o'clock news." Ariana keeps her eyes on Derek's face. "He cries pretty," she says. "If there's an Emmy for grieving husband, he filed the paperwork last week." Marisol makes a sound that isn't approval. "Are your door cameras working?" "Last week, Derek said they broke at the perfect time to get fixed." "Right." Marisol doesn't ask why. "Check your bag. Anything with your name. Anything that can be traced." Ariana slides her hand into her purse and feels a stiff envelope. She pulls it out just enough to see a header and one number. $500,000. She tucks it deeper, like hiding it changes what it means. "Listen," Marisol says, "if you want any control over this, by tomorrow morning you have to disappear from anything that can ping a tower." Ariana sets the lasagna down, wipes her hand on the napkin and stands. The TV keeps rolling, Derek nodding as if pain is part of his schedule. A ticker at the bottom repeats, "Missing wife," over and over. She keeps moving across the motel lot until the building is behind her and the road is in front of her. Marisol's Corolla waits near the far curb, angled to leave without backing up. Ariana climbs in, pulls the motel keycard from her pocket, snaps it in half, and drops the pieces into the cup holder. Marisol doesn't comment. She drives with both hands on the wheel, taking a loop that makes no sense if you're trying to get home fast, then cutting through side streets that don't show up on the main route. When they reach Charlotte, Marisol parks behind her building, not out front, and walks Ariana up the service stairs. On the kitchen table sits a prepaid phone, a spiral notebook, and a pen. Marisol points at them like she's setting out tools for a job. Ariana turns the burner on. 3 texts from coworkers flash, time-stamped minutes apart. "Are you okay?" from a claims adjuster she shares a cubicle wall with. Then nothing. Another message from someone higher up lands next. "If you're safe, why don't you come home?" The wording settles like pressure. The phone rings with a blocked number. Ariana answers and keeps her voice flat. "Hello." "This is Human Resources," a woman says, polite in the way that means the call is being logged. "We've been contacted by law enforcement. Your access to the system has been suspended pending review." Ariana doesn't ask which law enforcement. She doesn't argue. "Okay." "We'll be in touch," the woman adds, and hangs up without asking if Ariana is safe. Ariana's personal phone stays sealed in the pouch, but Marisol's phone starts vibrating on the counter like it wants to leave the room. The screen shows Mom, again and again, forwarded from Ariana's line. Ariana reaches for it. "Don't," Marisol says. "She's going to think—" "She already thinks whatever Derek told her," Marisol replies. Ariana pulls the notebook closer and writes dates and times in blocky letters. She doesn't narrate them. She writes, "Last verified location, last message received, the moment the door camera broke, the minute Derek went live." Marisol slides a sheet of paper next to the notebook. At the top, she has written in thick marker, "Do not." Under it, "Call, text, post, explain." Ariana taps the pen against the page, then sets it down as if it has done its part. She nods at the TV in the living room, still running updates about the search. "I should call the police," she says. Marisol shakes her head once. "You call now? You hand Derek the microphone," she says. "That's not how it's supposed to work." Marisol opens a drawer and drops a small stack of cash on the table. It's how it works when the person who found the story is also writing it. Ariana takes the bills and folds them into her wallet. Derek's face appears again on the screen, replayed with a caption that calls him devoted. Ariana watches long enough to confirm he's still performing. "He's doing a media tour," she says, "and I'm learning to live like I'm dodging taxes." Marisol drives her to a convenience store 2 blocks over, then makes her get out a street early and walk the rest. Ariana pulls a baseball cap low, keeps her face angled toward a row of parked cars whenever she passes a doorway, and doesn't pause near the lit glass at the entrance. She pays cash for water, a granola bar, and a cheap phone charger, and she doesn't linger under the bright square of the front camera. At the register, the clerk looks up at the TV mounted near the ceiling. "You seen that missing lady?" the clerk asks. "The husband's a wreck." Ariana keeps her change in her fist. "Yeah," she says. Marisol waits by the side wall, not near the windows. When they leave, Marisol takes 3 turns that don't match the way back. Ariana doesn't argue. She counts intersections out loud, then writes them down the moment they return. Back at the apartment, Ariana wipes the soles of her shoes with a paper towel and sets the burner beside the notebook. Another text pops up from the coworker who asked if she was okay, now followed by, "People are saying you ran." Ariana doesn't reply. Marisol flips the TV off and opens her laptop instead, pulling up the Facebook group. Derek's post sits at the top. "Please help me find my wife." A wedding photo is attached, the one where he has his arm tight around Ariana's waist. The comments scroll fast. Prayers, hearts, strangers offering boats, and a woman writing, "That poor man." Ariana closes the laptop halfway. Marisol says, "You're not just missing, you're losing ground," as Ariana folds the paper labeled "Do Not" and slips it into her pocket. Marisol's spare room had become a makeshift office. 1 chair, a borrowed laptop, and a printer that complained every 3rd page. Ariana opened her old secondary email account, the one she used for boring work notices. She typed carefully, watching each letter appear as if it mattered more than sleep. A subject line sat at the top like a hazard sign. Beneficiary change confirmation. It wasn't in her personal inbox, but in the policy email Derek insisted they share. Ariana clicked. The message opened with corporate cheer. "Your update is complete." Effective date, 2 weeks ago. Amount, $500,000, listed below. Derek had always said he hated insurance paperwork, the same way he said he hated vegetables, as if declaring it made it someone else's job. Yet the confirmation showed every box filled, every signature captured, every option selected. It looked clean, timed, and practiced, like he'd rehearsed it for weeks. Ariana flipped back to her notebook and checked the calendar page she'd scribbled earlier. 2 weeks ago was the Friday Derek suggested a cabin weekend to reset. He'd booked it with a grin and a list of trails. The date on the email matched the reservation confirmation she'd saved too. Marisol leaned in, read the screen, and let out a slow breath through her nose. "Forward that to me," she said. Ariana didn't hit send. She copied the details onto paper first, then folded the page in half. Marisol watched her hands, not her face, and waited a beat longer. They left the apartment with nothing that looked like luggage. Ariana wore the cap again and carried the notebook in a plain tote. Marisol chose a crowded coffee shop, the kind with too many students and too little attention. Ariana took a booth and kept her back to traffic today. A TV above the counter replayed Derek's press plea on a loop. A man glanced at the screen, then at Ariana, then back again, like he was solving a puzzle. Ariana slid her cup aside, stood, and moved behind a pillar, leaving the coffee nearly full without looking back once. She reopened the laptop and pulled up the insurer's portal through the old email link, careful not to sign into anything tied to her phone. A draft message sat unsent. Preserve records? She started a new one, addressed to a contact from work, then paused when Marisol touched her wrist. "Don't send yet," Marisol said. Ariana looked up. Marisol kept her voice low, not secretive, just practical. "Who benefits if you stay missing?" she asked. Ariana picked up the pen and wrote on the napkin beside the notebook. "He planned it." She underlined them once, enough to tear the paper. Marisol didn't argue with the napkin. She asked for the timeline page, then lined the dates with the email printout Ariana had copied. The cabin weekend sat there, smiling at her like a trap. Ariana folded the napkin, put it in her wallet, and kept her hands on the table. The burner buzzed with another message from a coworker, then stopped, as if even concern had a limit. Ariana turned the screen face down. Across the shop, the man from before kept watching, and Ariana didn't give him a second look. She packed the laptop, leaving no crumbs of her plan. Marisol paid with cash at the counter, while Ariana waited near the restroom corridor, out of the main flow. When Marisol returned, she didn't say, "Let's go." She just nudged Ariana's tote and stepped toward the side door. Ariana followed at the same pace, like they were late for nothing. Ariana stopped once to glance at the laptop screen before shutting it. The draft blinked at her. Preserve records? She hadn't sent a message that could be traced back to her. She snapped the lid down, slid it into the tote, and gripped the strap until her knuckles paled white. At the sidewalk, Ariana let Marisol take point. Cars rolled past, and she avoided looking at any windshield too long. The burner in her tote vibrated, then stopped, then vibrated again with insistence. She pulled it out. The caller ID read, "Detective, unknown." Marisol's head turned before Ariana spoke. Ariana didn't answer right away. She held the phone at chest level, thumb hovering over the icon, while Marisol watched the street for anything that moved too slowly. The call went to voicemail once, then rang again. Ariana stepped off the curb with Marisol, the burner vibrating against her palm. The grocery store lot spread ahead, bright under tall lights, and she headed for a row of carts as if she belonged there. The phone flashed, "Detective, unknown," again. She answered before it rolled the voicemail, because part of her still believed in doing the responsible thing. "Ma'am, this is Detective Collins with CMPD," a man said. "Are you calling about Derek Hale?" Ariana asked. "Are you safe right now?" "Yes," she said, and hated how normal that sounded. "Good. Where are you so we can get you to a secure location and reunite you with your husband?" Marisol's gaze snapped to Ariana's. Ariana kept walking, letting her tote swing like she was just another shopper. Her mouth opened, then closed. None of that fit into a neat answer to, "Where are you?" "I'm not at home," she said. There was a pause, the kind that made time feel counted. "Ma'am, give me the address," the detective said. "We have units nearby." Ariana saw the pickup as she passed the last cart corral. Dark paint, a dented rear bumper, and a plate she'd memorized from too many grocery runs with Derek. It sat 3 rows over, angled as if it had arrived early and planned to leave fast. The brake lights flickered once. "Don't," Marisol said. Ariana lowered the phone a fraction. "I'm at a—" she started. The call dropped. No goodbye, no click, just dead air and a blank screen. At the same moment, the pickup's engine turned over. The truck eased out of its space and began to roll toward them. Not hurried, not lost, just committed. Marisol caught Ariana's elbow and steered her between 2 parked SUVs. They didn't run yet, Running drew eyes. Ariana kept her shoulders down and walked faster, threading through the lanes toward the street. "That's his truck," Ariana said. "I know," Marisol replied. They reached the sidewalk, and Marisol didn't aim for her building. She cut right toward a gas station on the corner, the kind that sold hot dogs and lottery tickets and didn't ask why you looked like you hadn't slept. The pickup turned at the far end of the lot, following the same direction. At the station, Ariana headed for the trash can beside the pumps. A sign above it read, "Smile, you're on camera." She glanced at the dome camera and muttered, "Great, at least someone's watching me. As long as it isn't Derek." Marisol opened her car and popped the trunk. "Phone," Marisol said. Ariana looked at the burner, then at Marisol. The screen was dark, but it felt loud. "It was the police," Ariana said. "It was a number Derek wanted you to answer," Marisol replied. "Drop it." Ariana walked to the trash can, peeled the back off the burner, snapped the battery loose, and tossed both pieces into different bags of garbage. She didn't linger to make it dramatic. She just did it and stepped away. Her wallet came next. She pulled out her company badge, the one with her photo and her name printed, and set it on the edge of the can. For a second, she imagined it like a breadcrumb trail. She flicked it in. Marisol handed her a bottle of water and a folded jacket from the trunk. "Put that on," Marisol said. Ariana shrugged into it, covering the color of her shirt and the shape of her shoulders. Marisol slammed the trunk and got behind the wheel. Ariana climbed into the passenger seat. Her own phone, still sealed in the pouch, buzzed faintly against her hip. Then Marisol's phone chimed with a bank alert that wasn't hers, but still made Ariana's stomach tighten. Marisol glanced down and swore under her breath. "What?" Ariana asked. "Your joint account just flagged unusual activity," Marisol said. "It might freeze." Ariana reached for her wallet again and found the card slot empty where her debit card used to be. She had left it on the motel dresser, thinking she'd come back for it. Now it felt like a door locking from the other side. The pickup rolled past the station entrance, slowing as if the driver was deciding which car to choose. Marisol didn't wait for certainty. She shoved the key, the engine caught, and she pulled out hard enough to jostle Ariana's shoulder against the seat. Ariana grabbed the door handle, then the seat belt, clicking it into place while the car surged into the lane. In the side mirror, the pickup hesitated, then swung wide to turn around. Marisol stayed on the highway until the pickup was nothing but a dark speck, then cut toward Uptown and slipped into a parking garage that charged by the hour. Ariana kept her head down, not because she felt guilty, but because she didn't want her face caught on a camera and posted beside Derek's tearful grin. Marisol paid cash at the kiosk, took a ticket, and drove to the top level where fewer cars sat. Ariana stepped out, tugged the borrowed jacket closed, and followed Marisol toward the stairwell. The city felt awake and indifferent, like it had other emergencies scheduled. They crossed the lobby without stopping, past a security desk and a wall of glossy tenant names. Marisol waited until they reached a bench near the elevators before she pulled out her phone. She turned the screen toward Ariana. Derek's post filled it. A smiling wedding photo, a headline about his missing wife, and a GoFundMe link. Under the fundraiser, a line read, "Estimated expenses, legal fees / private search assistance." Ariana stared at those words. Derek didn't ask for help because he was helpless. He asked because he was buying something. Marisol slid the phone back into her pocket. "Here's the part people don't get," she said. "He's not just looking for you. He's building a file." Ariana rubbed her thumb over the edge of the parking ticket. She could keep running, stay off every grid, sleep on couches and motel beds until Derek got tired or found another target. That plan required time, money, and luck, and she was already short on 2 of those. The other option was uglier. Step into a lawyer's office, put her name on paper, and let the system notice her again. "Your strength isn't charm," Marisol said. "It's records. Your field. Your habit of keeping receipts." Ariana gave a thin nod. Her job had trained her to mistrust convenient stories, to look for dates that lined up too perfectly. Derek had counted on her being too polite to say anything out loud. She glanced at the directory board and found the law firm Marisol had circled in pen. The letters looked ordinary, which helped. If Ariana turned around now, Derek would keep owning the narrative. If she walked forward, she'd be risking headlines, questions, and a man who liked microphones. Marisol led her to a suite on the 10th floor. The waiting area had 2 chairs, a water cooler, and a receptionist behind glass who didn't smile like she recognized Ariana from the news, which Ariana appreciated. Marisol handed her a clipboard of intake forms and a pen that was chained to it. Ariana filled in her name, then hesitated at current address. She wrote temporary and moved on. Through a cracked door, she heard a man's voice speaking firmly, the kind that charged by the hour. Ariana leaned toward Marisol. "At least today," Ariana whispered, "Derek isn't the only one performing." Marisol sat beside her, knees angled toward the exit, as if leaving was always an option. She slid another screenshot across the clipboard. The fundraiser had already ticked up a few $100s, comments praising Derek's love. Ariana didn't read them. She watched the phrase private search assistance and pictured Derek hiring someone to follow her in parking lots, to call in tips, to look helpful while hunting. For a second, she wanted to stand up, walk out, and let everyone keep believing whatever was easiest. Then she pictured the policy email again, the neat boxes, the date that matched the cabin weekend. She lowered the clipboard and met Marisol's eyes. Marisol spoke without raising her voice. "You can win if you play on the right field," she said. "Your field isn't Facebook. It's paperwork." "Not online, ever." Ariana reached into her tote and pulled out the stiff envelope she'd been guarding since the motel. She didn't wave it like a weapon. She placed it on the receptionist's counter as if it belonged there. Because it did. The receptionist glanced at the header and slid a consent form forward. "Please sign here," the receptionist said. Ariana signed Ariana Grande, then watched her own handwriting like it was evidence. Marisol hovered by the door, not pushing, just present. Ariana could still turn around, vanish again, and keep the world's story intact. That option sounded safer, until she remembered the pickup's slow approach and the detective's question about reuniting her with her husband. Derek was already spending money to find her. He would spend more to control what she said when he did. A door opened down the hall. A man in a navy suit stepped out, scanning the waiting area with a practiced calm. Mr. Kaplan brought her to a small conference room and closed the door without fuss. He didn't ask for tears or a dramatic timeline. He asked for dates, devices, and what Derek had access to. Ariana slid the envelope and her notebook across the table. Kaplan skimmed the policy update, circled the $500,000 with a pen, and nodded once. "We can file for an emergency protective order," he said. "We can also file a counterclaim and send preservation letters for emails, cameras, and policy records." His tone stayed flat, like a weather report, and that steadiness let Ariana breathe again. Marisol sat against the wall, arms folded, tracking every phrase Kaplan chose. He asked Ariana which accounts were joint, which phones Derek paid for, and whether he knew her work passwords. Ariana answered in short lines and wrote each answer under the matching date. Kaplan didn't promise miracles. He handed Marisol a list of documents to pull and told Ariana to stop using any account tied to her old number. "I'll set up a meeting with the detective through my office," he said. "No one needs your address for that." Ariana watched his pen move, relieved it wasn't shaking today. Kaplan turned his screen toward them and pointed to a calendar block already filling up. "Because the missing person report went public, there'll be a hearing at Mecklenburg County Courthouse in a few days," he said. "Your husband's attorney will push for orders, and the press may show up." Marisol's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent. Ariana tapped her notebook with one finger, then closed it, choosing not to add a comment that might become a quote later. Kaplan repeated the courthouse name, slow and clear, like he wanted Ariana to memorize the route without taking it yet, for now anyway. They left with a thin folder of instructions and a thicker stack of copies Kaplan made on the spot. In the lobby, Ariana kept her cap brim low and walked beside Marisol as if they were co-workers on a lunch break. Near a concrete pillar, a man in a gray hoodie leaned with his shoulder to the wall, staring at his phone. As Ariana drew even with him, he lifted his head at the exact moment her shoes clicked on the tile. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just watched her pass, then went back to the screen. Marisol noticed too. In the parking garage, Marisol didn't head straight to the exit. She walked a full row past her car, doubled back, and checked the reflection in a dark window. Ariana climbed into the passenger seat and set the folder on her lap. A sedan pulled out 2 spaces behind them a few seconds after Marisol started the engine. Marisol waited, letting it choose a direction first, then eased out and turned right. At the next light, she turned left. The sedan followed. One more turn, and it was still there. Marisol's hands stayed steady, but her shoulders rose a notch. Marisol merged onto a frontage road and varied her speed, never enough to draw a ticket, just enough to test commitment. The sedan mirrored every move. Ariana didn't look back twice. She watched the side mirror once, then focused on the glove box where Marisol kept spare cash and an old map.
If he hired someone, he could have hired someone subtler, Ariana said under her breath. That guy looks like he's waiting for a Black Friday doorbuster.
Marisol didn't laugh. She took the next exit, then another, aiming for a different neighborhood than before. The sedan stayed tucked behind them. Ariana heard footsteps slow in the hallway, then stopped near the door as if someone had found the right number. Marisol moved to the wall beside the entry, phone in hand, but not unmocked. Ariana picked up Kaplan's folder and held it against her chest, the paper edges pressing through the cardboard. The building's HVAC kicked on, then off, leaving only the soft scrape of a shoe shifting weight. A shadow passed under the door. Ariana tightened her grip. The knob turned a fraction, testing, and Marisol's hand rose, steady, toward the deadbolt while Ariana held her breath and listened. The knob moved again, slow and careful, like whoever stood out there didn't want to make a mistake. Ariana kept the folder pinned to her ribs, feeling the cardboard flex. Marisol's hand hovered near the deadbolt without touching it, as if even the click of a lock might give them away. A thin scrape followed, the sound of something rigid sliding near the latch. Not keys, not a friendly knock. More like a card being tested against a door that wasn't supposed to be stubborn. Marisol grabbed Ariana's wrist and tugged her toward the bathroom. She didn't speak. She just pulled. Ariana went with her, stepping over the edge of the rug, catching herself on the doorframe. Marisol pushed the bathroom door nearly closed, turned the faucet full blast, and let the water run hard enough to fill the small space with noise. Ariana watched her do it, then watched Marisol set her burner phone on the sink, screen facing up. A message lit the display from Mr. Kaplan. Police just received additional location information from Derek. Ariana stared at the words until they stopped being words and became a plan. Derek was feeding the system something, maybe a tip, maybe a story, maybe coordinates pulled from an old login. Whatever it was, it meant uniforms could show up and follow the narrative they'd already been handed. Marisol leaned close enough that Ariana could hear her through the water. "We leave," she said. Ariana nodded once. She didn't ask where. She didn't ask how. She followed Marisol back into the living room where the lamp stayed dim and the folder sat on the coffee table like it belonged to a different life. Ariana reached for her tote, then paused, weighing it by instinct. The notebook, the policy update copies, Kaplan's instructions, the napkin with 3 words folded into her wallet. She left the laptop. She left the extra shoes. She grabbed the folder, the notebook, and the envelope with the $500,000 header that had started this whole spiral. The scrape at the door came again, firmer this time. Ariana moved to the peephole and looked through it without pressing her face close. A figure stood slightly off to the side, out of the straight line of the hallway camera. The man didn't fidget or check a watch. He didn't raise a hand to knock. He waited with the patience of someone who thought the door would open eventually, whether by fear or by authority. Marisol stepped behind Ariana and kept her voice level. "Don't stare," she said. Ariana backed away. Her hands didn't shake, but her grip tightened until the folder edges bit her fingers. Marisol went to the kitchen, grabbed her keys, and moved toward the rear door, the one that opened to a narrow corridor and a service stairwell. She paused, listening. From down the hall, the elevator chimed. Ding! Ariana didn't need to be told what that meant. Someone had arrived on their floor,
And it wasn't a neighbor carrying groceries. Marisol eased the back door open. Ariana followed, stepping through as the elevator doors down the hallway slid apart with a soft, mechanical sigh. They took the stairwell 2 steps at a time. Marisol didn't turn on the light. Ariana kept one hand on the rail and the other wrapped around the folder. The concrete steps blurred into a steady rhythm. Above them, a muffled sound echoed, like a door opening, like a voice kept low. At the landing, Marisol stopped long enough to check the exit window. The parking lot sat below, scattered cars and a few cones. Nothing dramatic. Ariana's reflection hovered in the glass, cap brim low, jacket borrowed, face too pale for someone who was supposed to be home safe with her loving husband. They pushed out into the lot and cut between 2 rows of parked cars. Marisol didn't go to her Corolla. She went to a dark sedan near the far edge with no front plate and tinted windows. A man in the driver's seat lifted a hand in greeting and stayed seated. Marisol opened the rear door for Ariana. Ariana hesitated just long enough to clock how wrong this looked. Unmarked car, midnight exit, a folder of evidence clutched like a life vest. If anyone filmed this, Derek would have a new script by morning. Marisol caught her eye. "This is Kaplan's guy," she said. "Get in." Ariana slid into the back seat. The door shut with a hard, final sound. Click. The lock engaged automatically. Ariana tested the handle once and stopped. Marisol climbed into the passenger seat and gave the driver a short address Ariana didn't recognize. The car rolled forward, smooth and quick, and merged out of the lot at the first green light. Ariana's phone stayed sealed in the pouch, useless by design. She set the folder on her knees and pulled out the envelope, fingers finding the strip of evidence tape Kaplan had added. The car turned, then turned again, and Ariana worked the tape corner loose with her thumbnail. She leaned forward toward the gap between the front seats. "I've never wanted to be found less in my life," she whispered. Marisol didn't turn around. "Good," she said. "Stay that way." Kaplan's name flashed on Marisol's phone a second later. She answered on speaker, voice clipped. "Don't go home," Kaplan said. "Don't talk to any detective unless I'm on the call." "They're moving based on what your husband is feeding them." Marisol said, "Understood," and ended it. Ariana peeled back the tape and opened the envelope just enough to check the pages were still there, still crisp, still real, while the sedan picked up speed and the street lights strobed across her hands as she counted the documents one by one. Ariana stepped out with Kaplan's folder hugged to her side. Marisol stayed close, scanning the rows of cars like she expected one of them to belong to Derek. Kaplan walked ahead, speaking to an officer at the front desk in a low, businesslike tone. Ariana gave her name once, watched it get written down, then followed them through a corridor and into a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a wall clock that refused to hurry. A woman in a plain blouse entered with a thin file and a badge clipped at her waist. She didn't offer sympathy, and Ariana felt grateful for that. "I'm Detective Chen," she said. "I'm not the detective who called you yesterday." Kaplan nodded to confirm the point. Chen sat, placed the file on the table, and looked at Ariana like she was assessing risk, not character. "Before we talk," Chen said, "I need to know you understand something. Your husband has already provided a version of events. The department has been operating under that version." Kaplan slid a sheet of paper across the table. "That changes today," he said. Ariana opened her folder and set down the policy update printout, the email confirmation, and her handwritten timeline. Chen didn't reach for them right away. She watched Ariana's hands, then the way Ariana kept the pages aligned, squared to the table edge, as if neatness could substitute for safety. Chen finally pulled the stack toward her and began turning pages in silence, reading faster than most people could. Her expression didn't shift, but her pen stopped on the number. $500,000. Chen reached into her file and placed another packet down. It was thicker, official, and clipped with an evidence label. On top sat a copy of the same policy update Ariana had printed, followed by a beneficiary change form with Derek's name written cleanly in the signature box. Then came a page with internal notes from the insurer, lines highlighted in yellow. Ariana recognized the phrasing immediately. Claims language, the kind that sounded harmless until it wasn't. Chen tapped the highlighted line with her pen. "Your husband called and asked questions about accidental death coverage," she said. "And he asked about what he called a no-body timeline." That's the phrase used. Kaplan's jaw tightened. Marisol's shoulders shifted, but she didn't speak. Ariana didn't move at all. She watched Chen's pen hover over the words like it was hovering over her throat. Chen turned another page. "This is a call log," she said. "It shows your husband contacted a private search service 2 days before he went on television." Marisol let out one sharp breath through her nose, then caught herself. "So, the tears were scheduled," Marisol said. Chen didn't react to the comment. "It suggests planning," she replied. "It suggests he expected a public event and wanted resources lined up." Chen slid a separate sheet forward, printed with timestamps. "About that 6:12 p.m. detail," she said. "Your husband told reporters you left at 6:12. At 6:12, he sent a message to an unknown number that reads like an appointment confirmation." Chen turned the page for Ariana to see. The text was short, bland, and timed like someone setting a reminder. Ariana didn't read it twice. Once was enough. Chen kept going. "You also mentioned your door camera broke. We pulled the repair invoice your husband provided." Chen laid it down. The repair date was after Ariana disappeared. "And the scarf he presented on TV," Chen added. "It still had a retail seal visible on one corner. That detail is noted in the report." Kaplan leaned back just enough to think. "With your permission," he said to Ariana, "we can submit an affidavit today, attach these documents, and request warrants for device retrieval and account records." Chen nodded. "If the affidavit is strong and the chain is consistent," she said, "we can seek a warrant for phones, computers, and camera systems tied to the residence. We can also request subscriber data for the numbers involved." Marisol looked at Ariana. "This is the field," she said, almost gently. "Paper beats performance." Kaplan raised one finger, a warning before the relief could settle. "If Derek learns she's cooperating," he said, "he will pivot. He'll claim she's unstable. He'll claim she ran for a reason. He'll push for welfare checks and emergency orders." Chen didn't argue. "That's common," she said. Ariana stared at the stack of documents, then said, dry and even, "I work in insurance. I hate surprises. Derek seems to love the legal kind." Chen slid a statement form across the table. "Read and sign," she said. "This documents your contact with counsel, your fear for your safety, and the policy information." Ariana picked up the pen and started writing her name at the bottom, the letters steady. As the tip touched the paper, the door opened. An officer leaned in, eyes on Chen. "News," he said. "Hale just filed an emergency motion, and he's pulling media to the courthouse." Kaplan didn't let the officer finish the sentence in the doorway. He raised a hand, stepped out, and shut the door with his shoulder. Ariana watched his back for a beat, then looked at Detective Chen, who already had her phone out. "That hearing just got scheduled," Chen said. 48 hours. Kaplan came back in, face set. He slid a card across the table, blank side up. On the back, he had written 2 lines. Back entrance, time. "We're leaving through the garage," he said. "No one walks you out." Marisol stood first, already gathering Ariana's folder and notebook. They moved as a unit, Kaplan ahead, Chen trailing them to the records room, Ariana in the middle, trying not to hurry. A clerk handed Chen a receipt for the statement Ariana had just signed. Kaplan kept his voice low, the way he did when he wanted everyone to act normal. "Derek wants cameras at the courthouse," he said. "If we let him go in alone, he gets an order, freezes accounts, and sells the world a medical explanation for why you ran." Ariana followed them back to Kaplan's office suite and into a smaller meeting room with a whiteboard that still had someone else's calendar scribbled on it. Kaplan erased it with his sleeve and drew a new box labeled Hearing, 48 hours. He wrote beneath it, EPO, Affidavit, Preservation. "This is the clock," he said. Ariana held her hands over the folder as if it might slide away. Her fingers had faint paper cuts from turning pages too fast. She looked at the marks and decided what they meant. If she lost her reputation, she could still wake up tomorrow. If she lost her life, nobody would be left to protect the truth on paper. She accepted in the most practical way possible that privacy was gone. Peace was gone too. Strangers would hate her, doubt her, or turn her into gossip, and she would keep moving anyway. Kaplan laid out the two paths without dressing them up. Option 1, you stay hidden, he said. He walks into court, he tells his story, and the judge signs something that makes your life smaller. Option 2, you appear on our terms. Not front door, not alone, not until law enforcement is ready to act on evidence, not feelings. Detective Chen added a third sentence that sounded like a warning and a favor at once. If he knows you're cooperating, he'll claim you're unstable, she said. He'll ask for welfare checks and emergency holds. Marisol leaned forward, elbows on knees. That's why we don't give him your location, she said. Ariana opened her notebook and slid a page toward Kaplan. It listed the policy confirmation, the beneficiary change, the no-body timeline phrase, and the date of the cabin weekend. Kaplan photocopied it, stamped it, and added it to the affidavit packet. He drafted preservation letters for the insurer, the camera vendor, and the cell carrier, then had Ariana initial each page. Her initials looked the same on every line, which made her feel like herself again, for a minute. Chen scanned the packet, slid the originals back, and handed Ariana a receipt for what she'd provided. Kaplan had her sign the emergency protective order petition, then clipped it to the affidavit and the preservation letters. Chen wrote a number on a sticky note and pushed it across the table. If anyone contacts you claiming to be police, she said, call me through Kaplan. Don't meet them. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Marisol handed Ariana a plain, no-logo jacket from a shopping bag. Ariana slipped it on and checked the mirror in the hallway, then said, I don't like the spotlight, but if he already booked my ticket, I'm at least picking the seat by the exit. Kaplan wrote a time on the back of the card, slid it to her, and pointed to the words, back entrance. Memorize it, then keep it off your phone, he said. Marisol guided Ariana through the garage stairwell and into her car. They took a route that cut away from the main streets, turning whenever a light felt too exposed. Ariana kept the new burner in her lap, screen dim, and watched the countdown timer Kaplan had set for the hearing. 47 hours and change. Marisol drove with one hand and passed Ariana a marker. Write the number on paper, she said. Ariana wrote it on the back of the card, folded it twice, and tucked it into her wallet behind the napkin that said, he planned it. The car left the last highway sign behind and drifted onto a residential road. Ariana lowered her head, let the burner's timer glow once more, then slid it into her pocket as Marisol signaled for another turn. Kaplan picked Ariana up from a garage behind his building, not the front lot, and walked her straight to his car without pausing. Marisol followed a step behind, carrying the folder like it was fragile glass. Ariana wore the plain jacket and kept her cap low, but she still felt recognizable in the way a missing person becomes recognizable to strangers. Kaplan drove, parked where his firm rented a space, and led them through a side entrance that didn't funnel them past the main doors. He spoke while walking, not stopping long enough for anyone to join the conversation. We're filing supplemental paperwork, he said. We don't linger. If anyone approaches you, you don't answer anything except your name. Ariana nodded once. Marisol stayed close enough to touch her elbow if she drifted. The courthouse hall smelled like floor cleaner and stale coffee. People moved with folders tucked under their arms, talking fast, already annoyed about something. Kaplan guided Ariana toward a clerk's window, handed over forms, and waited while the clerk stamped them. Ariana kept her hands on the folder and watched the stamp hit paper like a metronome. When Kaplan turned, Derek was there. He stood 10 feet away with his own attorney, a man in a tan suit holding a leather portfolio. Derek's hair looked styled, not slept on. His eyes were red in the way eyes get red when someone wants you to notice. He saw Ariana and froze for half a second. Then his face shifted into something practiced and hurt. Ariana, he said, loud enough to draw heads. "You're making me crazy." "You run off and then you make things up?" Ariana didn't step toward him. She didn't step back either. Kaplan moved slightly in front of her, but Derek leaned around him as if Kaplan were furniture. Derek turned to the nearest cluster of people, voice thick with concern. "She's not okay," he said. "I just want her to get help." The tan-suit attorney nodded sympathetically, as if Derek had delivered a diagnosis instead of a threat. Marisol's jaw tightened. Ariana heard the shift in the hallway, the way strangers slow down when they think they're about to witness a scene. Derek had arranged a stage with nothing but volume and the right words. Kaplan spoke first. "Mr. Hale," he said, "step back. This is not the time." Derek ignored him and looked at Ariana like he was pleading. "Come on," Derek said. "Let's fix this." "You're scaring everyone," Ariana spoke once, because the truth felt like the only thing she still owned. "You changed the beneficiary on my life insurance," she said. Derek's face flickered, fast. Then he leaned into it, turning the flicker into concern. "See?" he said louder now. "She's obsessed." "I don't even know what she's talking about anymore." The tan-suit attorney lifted his hands in a calm gesture, like he was de-escalating a patient. A court security officer appeared at Kaplan's shoulder, eyes moving between Derek and Ariana. "Ma'am," the officer said, careful and official, "we have a request on file for a welfare check and an assessment. It's procedural." Kaplan's voice hardened. "It's not procedural," he said. "It's strategy." The officer held his expression, not arguing, just waiting for compliance. Ariana felt the hallway tilt toward Derek, toward the version of her that was unstable and uncooperative. Derek's mouth softened into a sympathetic line, like he was trying not to smile. "Please," Derek said, "just let them help you." Ariana didn't answer. Kaplan placed a hand out, palm low, directing her away from Derek without pulling her. Marisol moved with her, shoulder to shoulder. They started toward a side corridor, but a sudden burst of voices erupted near the main doors. Someone had recognized her. A camera lens swung toward them. Another followed. A reporter stepped forward as if the courthouse was a sidewalk. "Ariana!" someone called. "Are you okay? Did you run away? Is your husband lying?" Kaplan raised his hand, not waving, blocking. "No comment," he said. "Back up." The questions kept coming anyway, overlapping. Ariana's name turned into a chant, not hostile, just hungry. The officer guided them toward a side exit, and Kaplan leaned toward Ariana without looking at her. "We just lost timing," he said. "We wanted you unseen until we chose the moment." Marisol pushed the side door open. The air outside felt colder than it should have, or maybe Ariana just noticed it more. She heard Derek behind them, still talking, still playing the role. "She needs help," Derek called. "I'm trying to save my wife." Ariana stumbled once at the curb, caught herself, and kept moving. Marisol stayed close and muttered, almost to herself, "He says he wants you helped. Sounds like your insurance brochure." Kaplan didn't stop walking. A courthouse staffer led them down a narrow passage to a small waiting room reserved for privacy. The door shut, cutting off most of the noise, but not all of it. The voices outside rose again, pressing against the walls. Kaplan set Ariana's folder on the table and checked his phone. His mouth tightened. "He's live," Kaplan said. Marisol leaned toward Ariana. "Don't watch it," she said. Ariana didn't answer. She opened the burner and saw the alert. Derek Hale is live now. Kaplan knocked once, and a court staffer returned, guiding them down a service hall toward a back exit. Ariana walked without looking up, matching Kaplan's pace, letting Marisol carry the folder while the voice shouted her name behind them. Marisol drove them to Kaplan's office garage, then kept going to the safe apartment. At a red light, she glanced at her phone and swore. "They clipped it," she said. She turned the screen so Ariana could see. A short video from the courthouse hall, edited tight. It began with Ariana saying, "Insurance," then jumped to Derek saying, "She's not okay." The rest was gone, along with every page Kaplan filed. Comments stacked beneath it. "Gold digger," Divorce play, attention seeker. Ariana took the phone, watched once, then handed it back. Marisol kept driving, not letting light feel like shelter. Back at the apartment, Ariana set Kaplan's folder on the coffee table and pulled out the notebook. Her old work email was blocked, but the secondary address still loaded. A message from HR waited. Subject line, formal as a parking ticket. Administrative leave. The body read, "Due to ongoing public investigation, your system access remains suspended." No one asked if she was safe. Another ping followed, this time from her mother. 3 missed calls and 1 text. "Why are you doing this?" it said. Ariana flipped the phone face down and wrote the time in ink. Marisol watched, saying nothing. Paste. Kaplan called from his office line, voice clipped. "Preservation letters went out," he said. "But the house devices look wiped. Someone reset the router and pulled a hard drive before the warrant window." Ariana opened the banking app on Marisol's spare tablet and entered the joint account login she still remembered. The balance loaded, then sank to a number that looked like a typo. Derek had emptied it in clean transfers, all within his rights on paper. Ariana closed the app and slid the tablet away. Marisol opened a drawer and pushed a stack of cash toward her without smiling. Ariana's burner lit again and again with new numbers she recognized. A cousin wrote, "Your mom's crying." A former neighbor wrote, "Derek is such a good man." Someone from church asked if she needed a ride to rehab. Ariana didn't reply. She copied the messages into her notebook as evidence of how fast a story spreads when it is easy. Marisol opened Facebook, scrolled, and stopped on a comment thread where strangers offered Derek their spare rooms and prayers. Ariana watched her thumb hover over the reply box, then lift away like touching it could burn her. Kaplan warned this. Kaplan arrived after dark, coat still on, carrying a file and a tired look. He read the clipped video description and nodded as if checking a box. "This is working for him," he said. Ariana pulled up the edited clip on Marisol's laptop and let it play once more. 10 seconds of her voice, 5 seconds of Derek's, and a hallway full of strangers leaning toward his version. Ariana shut the lid halfway. "If they cut 10 more seconds, I'll be a Marvel villain," she said. Kaplan didn't smile. He set the file on the table and tapped it twice. Kaplan opened the file and slid out a draft motion and a court notice. "Here's the hard part," he said. "If we want him arrested in court, we need him confident. That means you get dragged for a few more days." Marisol's hands curled into fists at her sides. Ariana didn't argue. She picked up the notice and read the courthouse name again, then the date, then the time. She set it down and reached for the notebook. Kaplan watched her, then added, "If you try to clear your name now, you hand him oxygen." Marisol exhaled and looked away. Kaplan left as unobtrusively as he came, leaving the papers stacked and the room heavier. Marisol pulled the laptop back out and set it in front of Ariana without speaking. Ariana opened a blank document and placed the folder beside it. She didn't type a confession or a plea. She typed headings, names, locations, devices, accounts. She added the insurer contact, the camera vendor, the private search log, and the cabin reservation. Marisol leaned over her shoulder, read, then pointed at a missing line. Ariana added it and kept typing, building a list of who held what Derek couldn't erase. By morning, Ariana's list had become a grid. Names, dates, devices, and who could still pull what Derek couldn't erase. Marisol drove her back to Kaplan's office, parking in the same rented garage and walking up without stopping near the lobby cameras. Kaplan didn't ask how she felt. He set a thick folder on the table, opened it, and slid in Ariana's handwritten timeline, printouts of Derek's GoFundMe, and screenshots of the clipped hallway video. "They're already treating this like a mental health story," he said. Ariana kept her hands flat on the paper, then looked at Kaplan. "I don't need them to believe me right now," she said. "I need them to stop letting a man with a murder plan write the rules." Kaplan nodded, like she'd confirmed the only thing that mattered. "Then we make this boring," he said. "Affidavit, exhibits, preservation, and a clean chain." He wrote labels on tabs and assigned Marisol a list of calls to place from her phone, not Ariana's. That afternoon, Kaplan drove Ariana to the insurance company's records unit, a beige office suite with a locked file room and a receptionist who recognized Ariana but didn't comment. Ariana signed a visitor log and waited while a former supervisor, Kelly Thompson, brought her through the back hallway. Kelly kept her voice low. HR told us not to contact you, she said, but I can hand your attorney what we legally have. She opened a drawer and pulled a sealed envelope. Remember Mr. Haskins, the gentleman you helped last spring? Ariana nodded. Kelly slid a USB evidence bag across the table. He called yesterday. Said Derek phoned him weeks ago asking about how fast claims move and what happens when there's no body. Mr. Haskins keeps recordings of his calls. He brought it in and signed a consent form. Ariana didn't smile. She wrote the date on her notebook and slid the bag straight into Kaplan's folder. Kelly added a printed call log and a note showing Derek's earlier inquiry about accidental death coverage. Kelly set a speakerphone on the table and dialed the number from her desk sheet. A gravelly voice answered. Mr. Haskins here, Kelly said. She's with me. Her attorney's going to pick up the recording. Mr. Haskins paused. I told that man it sounded like he was timing a casserole, he said. Who asks how long grief takes? Ariana said, Thank you for keeping it. Ma'am, he replied, I'm old, not careless. Kelly ended the call and slid Ariana a signed chain of custody form. Marisol stopped pacing long enough to hear that. Detective Chen met them that evening in Kaplan's office, not at the station. She flipped through the new exhibits, paused at the USB bag, and asked Kaplan a few precise questions about how it had been obtained. Kaplan answered, and Chen nodded. That's admissible if the consent holds, she said. With this, plus the policy change and the no-body timeline note, we can ask for expanded warrants and subscriber logs. Kaplan didn't celebrate. He pointed to Ariana's timeline and the mismatch at 6:12. Chen photographed the page, then typed a note into her phone. We'll submit for device retrieval again, she said. If he already moved hardware, we'll pivot to carrier data. Marisol pulled up the latest local segment on her laptop. Derek sat at a kitchen table, hands clasped, speaking to a reporter with a softer face. I'm worried about her mental health, he said. I just want her safe. Ariana watched him switch gears without missing a beat, like he'd changed outfits. Ariana held her hands over the folder like it could drift off the table. Paper cuts lined her fingertips from flipping pages too hard. She turned her palms up, showing Kaplan the red slits. If my name gets trashed, I'm still alive, she said. If I'm not, this file is just decoration. He wanted to turn me into a story, Ariana said to Marisol, tapping Kaplan's growing stack of exhibits. So I'm turning him into paperwork. Kaplan slid everything into a zippered evidence bag, then handed it back to Ariana. You carry this, he said, not Marisol. If anyone separates you, you keep the record. Ariana nodded, then set her burner on the table and programmed an alarm for the courthouse time Kaplan had written on the card. She didn't name it. She just set it and turned the volume up. Chen glanced at her phone, then spoke as if reading it aloud. Day of the hearing? We'll be there, she said. You just show up at the right moment. Kaplan stood and opened the office door. Let's go, he said. Ariana arrived at Mecklenburg County Courthouse through the service entrance Kaplan had written on the card. She wore the plain jacket, no jewelry, hair tucked under a cap, and the evidence bag hugged to her side. Marisol walked a half step behind, hands empty, eyes moving like she was counting exits. Kaplan met them by a stairwell door and didn't touch Ariana, just nodded and led. Detective Chen waited there too, out of uniform, badge on her belt, and a folder under her arm. Chen glanced at Ariana's bag. You've got everything? Ariana nodded once. Kaplan pointed down the hallway. We wait until he commits on the record. They stopped beside a closed courtroom door while press voices rolled through the marble corridor. A local reporter laughed about the heartbroken husband, and a cameraman adjusted a tripod by the bench. Marisol kept her phone in her pocket and stared at the floor numbers on the elevator display. Ariana loosened the zipper on the evidence bag, checked the tabs, then closed it again. From behind the door came Derek's voice, loud enough to carry without a microphone. Chen leaned toward Kaplan. He's already on the live stream. Kaplan didn't look surprised. Good. Let him. The judge's voice muffled through the wood. Then Derek started speaking like he'd been waiting all week. Your Honor, my wife is missing, Derek said. I reported it immediately. I've been searching non-stop. I just want her safe. Ariana watched Chen's hand hover near her phone, ready for a signal. Inside the courtroom, Derek dabbed his eyes and kept talking. She left our house at 6:12 p.m., Derek said, voice steady. Kaplan wrote the number on his pad without lifting his gaze. Derek described a scarf, a broken door camera, and how Ariana wasn't herself lately. He spoke toward the benches, not toward the judge, as if convincing strangers mattered more. Chen's phone buzzed once. She read the screen and nodded at Kaplan. Now. Kaplan stepped to the door handle and pushed it open. Chen moved first, badge visible, and Ariana followed one pace behind her, Marisol behind Ariana. The courtroom noise dipped as heads turned. Ariana walked to Kaplan's table and stopped behind him, hands at her sides, evidence bag strapped tight in her grip. Derek's face shifted mid-expression, grief stuck between surprise and anger. His attorney leaned in, whispering, but Derek couldn't stop staring at Ariana. Kaplan spoke clearly. Your Honor, Ms. Grande is present with counsel and law enforcement. Detective Chen handed a document to the bailiff, then to the judge. The judge scanned it, eyes narrowing. Chen stepped toward Derek. Mr. Hale, stand up. Derek blinked as if he hadn't heard. This is ridiculous, Derek said, loud. Chen's partner, a uniformed officer who had entered behind her, took Derek's wrist. You are under arrest for making false statements and conspiracy to commit murder, Chen said. Derek's attorney started talking fast, but the judge raised a hand and stopped him. Kaplan opened the evidence bag and placed exhibits on the table in a neat row. Policy update, $500,000, Kaplan said. Beneficiary change to Mr. Hale. Call logs about accidental death and a no-body timeline. Kaplan slid forward the screenshot of the GoFundMe and the timestamp notes. He went to the media before he went to search, Kaplan said. Derek tried to pull back, but the cuffs closed with a dull click. Marisol leaned toward Ariana, voice low. Ariana didn't look at the live stream camera. She looked at Derek's hands. Derek's eyes flicked to her, searching for the version of Ariana that would beg. Ariana leaned toward Marisol and spoke without raising her voice. He wanted me found. Congratulations. He is too. The officer guided Derek toward a side door, and Derek twisted his head as if he could talk his way out. Kaplan touched Ariana's elbow once, then withdrew his hand, pointing her toward the rear hallway. A photographer squeezed into the doorway gap, lens searching, and a bailiff stepped in front of it. Chen nodded at Ariana. This way. Ariana lifted the evidence bag strap higher on her shoulder and followed Chen out as the courtroom noise rose behind them. In the service corridor, Ariana heard reporters shouting questions through the walls, their voices chasing her even without sight. Marisol stayed close, one hand hovering near Ariana's back, not touching, just ready to steady her if she stumbled. Kaplan walked ahead and spoke to Chen in clipped phrases about where to meet next and which door to use. Ariana kept her eyes on the green exit sign and the small card in her wallet, the one that had started as a plan and just became a fact. At the next turn, Chen pushed open a door and Ariana stepped through. 2 days after the hearing, Ariana sat at the same coffee table and opened a cardboard box stamped "Property Released." Kaplan's runner had dropped it off with a receipt and a warning not to call it a win. Marisol stood by the counter, arms folded, watching Ariana handle the tape like it could still bite. Ariana lifted the flaps and found her old house key on top, then her work badge, then a wedding photo bent at one corner. No note, no apology, just objects returned through a process that pretended objects were the problem. She picked up the key, felt the worn teeth, and for a second her hand aimed toward her pocket out of habit. Instead, she set it on the table beside Kaplan's thick folder and left it there. Marisol noticed and gave one small nod, as if Ariana had just moved a boundary line without announcing it. Ariana slid the wedding photo back into the box, face down, and clipped the $500,000 policy update into the file like it was a routine exhibit. In the motel, she had buried that number under clothes. Now, she filed it under tab C. She carried the box to a spare closet that Marisol's friend used for storage, set it on the floor, and pulled out a roll of labels. On the first label she wrote, "Do not open. Men with tears." Marisol's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, and Ariana stared at her own handwriting as if deciding whether it belonged. She peeled the label off and replaced it with a blank one, then pressed it down hard anyway. Kaplan had told her courts love restraint, but Ariana liked having at least one joke that stayed private. At the table, she opened her notebook to a clean page and wrote 3 headings: Accounts, Contact, Rules. She walked to the bank website on Marisol's laptop and started an application for a new account in her name only. She wrote the routing number by hand, then the account number, and put the paper in Kaplan's folder. Next, she activated a new phone line, chose a number no one associated with Derek, and set Kaplan's office as the only saved contact. Marisol watched her do it and said, "You're not even adding my number?" Ariana shook her head. "You're in my life, not my phone." Marisol exhaled and leaned back, accepting the rule without turning it into a speech. Ariana added another line: "No meetings with Derek's family alone." She wrote a mailing address for Kaplan's office and circled it twice. Marisol drove her to the main post office on Trade Street, parking in the far corner of the lot. Ariana waited in line behind a man shipping golf clubs and a woman arguing about stamps. When her turn came, she filled out a change of address form that routed every letter to Kaplan's mailbox service, not to any place Derek had ever seen. She bought 2 money orders with cash for filing fees Kaplan said might come fast. The clerk looked at her cap and said, "I need an ID for the forwarding request." Ariana slid her license across, watched the clerk copy it, then asked for the receipt. Back at the car, she stapled the receipt into her notebook and wrote the date beside it. When the burner rang, the screen showed Mom. Ariana held it for 1 beat, then answered and put it on speaker so her hands stayed visible on the table. "Ariana? Oh, thank God. Where are you?" Her mother's voice sounded thin, like it had been stretched across too many calls. "I'm safe. There's another hearing coming. Kaplan will call you if you need details." "Why won't you just come home and talk to him? People are saying—" Ariana glanced at Marisol, then at the key on the table, and reached for the end button. "Mom, I'm not doing advice calls. I'm doing legal calls. I love you." She hung up before the next sentence could turn into a leash. Marisol didn't praise her. She just slid the notebook closer and tapped the word rules. That evening, Ariana carried the box to the building's mail area and dropped it into the storage locker marked with a case number, then walked back without looking over her shoulder. When she returned, the folder sat open on the table, tabs aligned, the policy page visible like any other sheet. The doorbell rang. Marisol checked the peephole and stepped aside. Ariana opened the door to a delivery worker holding a large envelope with the district attorney's return address. "Signature, please," the worker said. 2 mornings after the envelope arrived, Kaplan met Ariana at the county prosecutor's office with a paper badge clipped to his suit jacket. Marisol waited by the vending machines, arms crossed, pretending to read a flyer about jury duty. An assistant district attorney named Leah Porter shook Ariana's hand once and got straight to the point. "Charges are staying in place," Porter said. "The no-contact order is being extended today." Porter slid a packet across the table. Ariana recognized her own timeline, now stamped and paginated, her neat handwriting turned into exhibit numbers. A separate page listed the life insurance policy and the claim status. Frozen, pending investigation. "The insurer has been notified," Porter said. Anything tied to the policy is locked while we work this case. Kaplan leaned forward. She also needs clarity on the joint accounts, he said. Porter flipped to another sheet. Your bank flagged the transfers, she said.
They've placed holds where they can. Some money is gone. Some is traceable. Ariana didn't argue with that. She pulled her notebook from her tote and wrote the date next to Porter's name, the same way she'd written everything else. Porter tapped the GoFundMe screenshot Kaplan had included. This fundraiser is being reviewed, she said. If people were misled, that's another layer. She glanced at Ariana. I'm not asking you to speak to the public. I'm asking you to stay consistent. No side conversations, no private meetups, no closure meetings. Kaplan answered with a simple nod, and Ariana did the same. Porter handed Ariana a court schedule and pointed at the next hearing date with the tip of her pen. You show up through your attorney's route, Porter said. You don't wander the halls. When they left, Kaplan walked a step ahead, guiding Ariana toward the elevator without making it look like guidance. Marisol joined them at the curb and held the car keys like a small weapon. Outside, a TV mounted in a lobby window played a local update. The headline crawled under Derek's photo. Wife located safe. Husband arrested in court. A passerby stopped, watched for 3 seconds, and kept walking. In the parking garage, Ariana's burner buzzed once. A text from a coworker appeared, short and unadorned. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. Ariana stared at it, then hit the power button and put the phone away. She didn't answer, not because she wanted punishment, but because Kaplan's rules had teeth. Marisol noticed the message anyway. Let it sit, Marisol said. People are slow. That's not your job now. They drove to the courthouse for the brief appearance Porter needed, parking in a reserved area Kaplan had arranged. The press cluster waited near the front steps, microphones up, questions loaded. Ariana stayed on the side path, moving with Kaplan as if she belonged to his shadow. A reporter broke away and followed. Miss Grande, do you have anything to say? The reporter called. Kaplan kept walking. Ariana didn't. She stopped long enough to face the reporter without stepping closer. Ask my lawyer, she said. I've said enough for a lifetime in this building. The reporter tried another question, but Kaplan shifted his body and the conversation ended by geography. Marisol opened a side door and Ariana went through, not rushing, not performing, just moving where she was supposed to move. In the corridor, Kaplan checked his phone and showed Ariana a fresh bulletin from the station's public information office. It repeated the basics, nothing emotional, just facts. Charges maintained, contact barred, insurance and property frozen during review, donations under audit. A courthouse employee passing by murmured, Good for him, standing by her, then glanced at Ariana and stopped mid-step. Ariana kept walking. Marisol said, People love a simple story, and held the door until Ariana cleared it without looking back at anyone behind. After the hearing, Kaplan steered Ariana back toward the garage. A woman on the sidewalk muttered, They're both probably guilty. Not loud enough to start a fight, loud enough to feel bold. Ariana didn't look at her. She kept her gaze on the concrete lines and the nearest exit sign and let Kaplan handle the world. The garage elevator arrived with a soft chime. Kaplan stepped in first, then Ariana, then Marisol. The doors started to close when Ariana saw movement across the open bay. A line of officers escorting Derek through a distant corridor, hands cuffed, suit jacket rumpled, head turning as if he could still find a camera. Ariana turned her face away on instinct, then made it deliberate. Marisol's hand hovered near the button panel, but Ariana reached first and pressed G. The elevator hadn't started moving, so she pressed it again, then again, fast, like she could hurry the cables with her fingertip while the doors finished sliding shut. Ariana picked a different coffee shop on South Boulevard, one that didn't have her face taped behind the counter. She ordered drip coffee, paid with a debit card that only had her name on it, and chose a seat where she could see the door without staring at it. A small TV over the pastry case ran the morning news. The anchor said, Wife located safe, and moved on to weather. Ariana set her phone face down, took a sip, and kept breathing like she'd done this before.
Her receipt lay beside the cup, and she didn't fold it into hiding. Marisol's text arrived while Ariana stirred her coffee with a plastic stick. "You okay?" Ariana answered without lifting her eyes from the cup. "Okay enough to text back." A second message followed. "Kaplan called. Nothing new."
Ariana turned her head toward the TV, where Derek's old photo flashed for a split second in a recap. She didn't touch the remote, just watched the story pass. "I think I graduated from local news," she said, mostly to the air, then went back to her coffee. She saved the thread, slid the phone face down again, and let the screen stay dark today. After coffee, Ariana walked 3 blocks to the light rail stop and rode to her office building. Kelly had arranged a temporary reassignment to a back-end auditing team, the kind that dealt with spreadsheets and documentation, not customers. Ariana entered through the front door this time. She swiped her badge, waited for the green light, and kept moving without checking every camera dome. At the elevator, she nodded at the security guard who used to look past her. He nodded back, cautious but polite, and held the door. On her desk, an envelope sat unopened, addressed to Ariana Grande, not Hale. At noon, she met with her manager for 10 minutes, signed a confidentiality reminder, and took a seat in an unused corner of the floor. She reviewed claim timestamps for fraud flags, the same skill that had kept her alive, and she printed what she needed instead of saving it to a shared drive. When her phone buzzed with another coworker's apology, she didn't answer. She forwarded it to Kaplan's email and returned to the spreadsheet. Before logging out, she added 2 appointments to her calendar: therapy on Tuesday, a support group on Thursday. She shut down and walked out. Outside, she sat on a bench in a small park near the station and opened Kaplan's template titled "How to Preserve Records." A former classmate had texted earlier, vague and scared, about a boyfriend who tracks everything and then denies it. Ariana didn't give advice. She attached the template, added 1 line, and sent it. "Don't confront him first. Save what you can, then get counsel." She put the phone away before the classmate could start a long back and forth. The bench faced a playground, and Ariana stayed there until her train arrived. Marisol's car rolled up, and Ariana stood ready. Marisol dropped her at the apartment and handed her a grocery bag, receipts stapled to it like proof of a normal life. Ariana sorted the mail from Kaplan's forwarding address, filed the court notice, and clipped a new bank statement behind it. She opened her calendar and confirmed the 2 appointments, then added a reminder to bring photo ID and cash. Marisol hovered near the doorway. "You want me to stay?" "No," Ariana said. "I want you to go home and lock your door." Marisol nodded, left, and Ariana washed her mug, setting it upside down to dry for now. The next morning, she walked back to the same coffee shop, not because it was special, but because routines are harder to steal than belongings. The TV still talked, and she still let it. She opened her phone only long enough to check her balance and the support group address, then closed it again. A man at the next table argued with his friend about sports scores, loud and carefree. Ariana didn't move away. She wrote 1 more line in her notebook. "No unplanned meetings." Then she folded the notebook shut as a new message preview slid across the screen. The message was from Kaplan. "Final paperwork ready." Ariana took the last sip of coffee, capped the pen, and tucked the notebook into her tote. She didn't check the TV, didn't check the door, didn't check who might be watching. She stood, pushed her chair in, and walked out through the front like she belonged to her own day. Outside, the sun hit the sidewalk hard enough to make everyone squint. Her phone buzzed again as she crossed toward the light rail, and her thumbs moved over the screen. "On my way," she hovered at send, and walking, not slowing.